Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Sunday afternoon, early evening. I can't ask you if you're all doing well because after the game against Spurs on Saturday, I guess we're all feeling a little bit down, a little bit upset. Maybe some of you are quite angry. Um, if you're new to the channel, please do hit the like button if you like the content, because when you hit the like button, YouTube elevates the video and enables other West Ham fans to watch it. So please do hit the like button if you appreciate. I can't say if you enjoy the content, especially after my talking about West Ham getting beat by Spurs 4-1. So if you appreciate the content, please hit that like button. And if you are new to the channel, please do consider to become a subscriber of the channel as well. That would be fantastic. So looking on reflection of the game against Spurs on Saturday, there's an awful lot of questions that are being asked, aren't they? You know, does one of the things that me and Wiggy spoke about, or Wiggy actually raised it straight after the game. We did a post-match review straight after the game, and he talked about Lopetegui'S style of football not being suitable, I guess, for the Premier League. And that got me thinking, to be honest with you. You know, and I sort of asked myself the same question since then. Does Lopetegui'S style of football, does the way he wants West Ham to play their football, does it suit West Ham United, the players that he has available to him, or are we equipped to play in that way? And then he kind of expands into other questions. You know, have we picked the right players in the transfer market? You know, have we brought the right players in for Lopetegui to succeed in the style of football that he wants to play at West Ham, or is there a mismatch? When you think about the game against Spurs and other games that we played that we've been defeated in, you know, we lost against Chelsea, we lost against Spurs. All right, it was in the cup, but we lost against Liverpool. These are the kind of teams, and we lost against Man City, of course, as well. But these are the types of teams that we're meant to be competing against, aren't we? In order to demonstrate that West Ham United are moving forward. But in every game that we've played against these teams that are going to be competing for the top six in the Premier League, we've failed so far. And, you know, the questions are being asked about, you know, is the style of football the right style of football for West Ham? Are the tactics that Lopetegui'S using, are they the right tactics? Is the formation the right kind of formation? You know, so many questions are being asked. We've been exposed now in games against, I'm going to disclude Man City because there aren't that many teams that are going to beat Man City this season. But when it comes to being thumped by Liverpool, being beaten at home 3-0 by Chelsea, now being beaten away from home by Spurs 4-1, you've got to ask yourself, you know, is Lopetegui using the right tactics against this team, these kinds of teams? And one of the things that we were led to believe when Lopetegui came in was he was going to introduce a different style of football for West Ham. It was going to be more possession-based, which we have, more chances created, which we have, but we were going to be tighter at the back. I mean, you know, we were applauding ourselves for in the transfer market for improving our defense. Last season, we couldn't keep a clean sheet for love nor money, but we were at least scoring goals in order to get some results, especially in the first half of last season. Now, this season, we're not only still not keeping clean sheets, but we're not scoring goals either. So we're not in the game. We're not in many games. Our defense doesn't seem to protect the goalie enough, and our midfield doesn't seem to protect our defense enough. When you look at other clubs in the Premier League, almost all of them, including some of the teams that struggle, they mostly have an agile, quick-paced central midfield, and we don't have that. We have players who seem to need more time on the ball. Hence the question being asked of Lopetegui, what style of football suits West Ham United? Or more to the point, what style of football is going to suit the Premier League? Because it's beginning to seem that Lopetegui'S tactics are simply not good enough for the Premier League. Now, on top of that, some players this season haven't turned up all season. Paqueta, I mean, I know he's got things looming off the pitch, but the number of errors he creates during games, I'm losing count. Antonio, with the greatest of respect to him, I don't think he's the sort of player that should be leading the line anymore. But I've thought that for a good couple of seasons. He adds the odd game that's good against Ipswich, of course. He was superb. But on the whole, he's not a centre forward that we should be relying on. With Paqueta, going back to him, with all the errors that he's creating, leading to opposition, creating chances of scoring goals, one would have thought by now he would have been dropped from the team. Mohamed Kudus has not been at the races. For the whole of the season, I've been talking about Kudus's posture, his demeanour doesn't seem to be right, and of course that was demonstrated in the game against Spurs when near the end of the game he lost it and rightly got sent off. And all the things that we were told about Lopetegui when he joined West Ham were actually demonstrated by his counterpart on Saturday, by Postecoglou. Postecoglou was watching the game closely and realised the issues that his team were facing in the first half, and he made decisive decisions to turn it around. It was in the middle of the park that wasn't quite clicking for Spurs. Yes, in the first half, they were all over us, despite the number of attacks that Spurs created in the first half. We were dealing with them really well. Now, some people have accused me of wearing my rose-tinted glasses when it came to the immediate post-match analysis. But you ask anybody that was at the game on Saturday, and at half-time, just about everyone that was talking about the game up to half-time said very much the same thing. We did well. We held our own. We were in the game. We were content. And when we got the ball, we were trying to do something with it. It was working. Kudus had two very similar chances in the first half, which resulted in the first one being a fine save from the Spurs keeper, and the second resulted in the goal. But it was Postecoglou's halftime tactical switch that won the game. Maddison was replaced by Papa Sarr, and he immediately added pace and energy in the middle of the park for Spurs, which we could not compete with. Of their first half equaliser, there was a bit of luck. All right. I think if you argue from the Spurs perspective, they had so many chances, they actually deserved to get a goal back. I think we were a little bit unfortunate that we actually conceded that goal. But you can't deny Spurs not, if that was us, having a right go at our opposition and we were 1-0 down, we would have taken that goal. And it came at the right time for them. And then the second goal, they tore us apart from that. That second goal, it was a good build-up play. We just weren't at the races, and Papa Sarr was included. What sort of set that up? Okay, their third goal was very lucky, but you've got to create those chances in order to have those get those sorts of goals in the first place, and that's what they did. They were kept attacking us, and they got their third goal, and then the final goal was their icing on the cake, where a tired Todibo just couldn't snuff out Son. And again, that goal was started by Papa Sarr as well. So they made the changes that they need to. Postecoglou saw what was going on and made the change he thought was necessary in order to get Spurs on the front foot. And he succeeded. The tactical switch worked. Now, after they scored their second goal, we had 3 subs waiting on to come on. So why did we end up waiting for it to be 4-1 before we made those subs? I mean, the subs were already at 2-1, but they didn't get brought on until it was 4-1. Look, Spurs deserved their win. What else can we say? They outplayed us, they outfought us, and Postecoglou outsmarted Lopetegui. So to add insult to injury, we now lose Mohamed Kudus for 3 games, and it's suggested that could be doubled when that's reviewed. It could be that the Premier League may look at that and they may double the automatic 3-match ban. Because if you look at what happened, Kudus lost it. I mean, he kicked out a couple of times, then he pushed the first player in the face, and then he pushed Sarr after that, and he could be penalised. Well, West Ham could be penalised for that. So losing Mohamed Kudus for potentially 6 games, and there are so many important games coming up where he's going to be missed, is a real killer for West Ham. Now, we look at some of the performances in the game against Spurs. Areola got a lot of stick. And for some reasons, yeah, I agree. He's certainly not the keeper we once knew him to be. And I suggested, I mean, when it comes to his distribution, it's getting worse and worse and worse. When it comes to him being demanding in his 18-yard box, controlling his 18-yard box, he's not doing it. He seems rooted to his goal line. And these are all the things that we were talking about Fabianski doing when Fabianski was our number one. So I'm going to go back to what I suggested a few weeks ago and ask what kind of coaching technique is going on at West Ham in order for our goalkeepers to show no element of assertiveness in goal. I worry about Areola, and there's fans suggesting, oh, we need a new keeper. But if the coaching techniques are not being sorted out, then whether we get a new keeper or not is going to make no difference at all, to be quite honest with you. And then the way Lopetegui utilizes his fullbacks. Look, he wants them pressing high. This is what he's always done, you know, but you've got to have a really agile midfield to help close the opposition out when the fullbacks are too far forward, you know, because otherwise you expose your centre backs. Ironically, even though we lost 4-1, and you're going to probably laugh at this, but ironically, our best players were Kilman and Todibo, and yet we conceded 4 goals. But they're getting exposed. We were exposed against Chelsea in exactly the same way, and we were exposed again against Spurs. So if you've got your fullbacks coming so far forward, you need to compensate. You need to compensate for that, and that means your midfielders, your central holding midfielders, need to drop deep enough in order to help out the defense, and we're not getting that at the moment. So there's a lot wrong in our central midfield, and we could see that. And that's why I go back to what Postecoglou did. He recognized the problem and he fixed that problem, which put Spurs even further on the front foot. We didn't do that. We don't seem to have the players, or certainly Lopetegui isn't picking the players in order to help compensate in that central midfield area to help our backline. And we're getting exposed over and over again. If Lopetegui wants to continue playing with his fullbacks so far forward, then he's got to start seriously considering a back 3. I think Mavropanos was really unfortunate not to be picked. I mean, I wouldn't replace Todibo. I think Todibo and Kilman have been really good, but Mavropanos has been unlucky to lose his place in the team. Therefore, it's only one conclusion. I mean, it's going to lead to another problem, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the conclusion for me is, if you want to play the fullback so high up the pitch, compensate for it. If our central midfielders are not doing it by not helping out our central defense, then play 3 at the back. So if we lose the ball, then you've got 3 central defenders to be able to cover, rather than just the 2 who always seem to be exposed. You know, whenever the opposition get the ball, all of a sudden we're sort of competing 2 against 3 or 2 against 4 attackers. Now, of course, playing 3 central defenders, playing a 3 at the back, means the other problem being, of course, is if we get an injury to one of those, we haven't got any cover on the bench, have we? Because we've only got 3 first team central defenders. Yes, of course, we've got the young central defender from the under-21s in Kalen Casey, but it does expose us a little bit if we get injuries. But worry about that when we do, if and when we do get injuries. Then go back to a back 2, sorry, with the 2 fullbacks. But at this moment in time, it looks as if the kind of squad that Lopetegui has available to him would do an awful lot better with a back 3 than we would with the back four that we've got at this moment in time. So if Lopetegui doesn't change the formation, then he really needs to start considering what he's going to do in central midfield. As I've just mentioned, we're simply not helping our defense enough. Rodriguez may well be a World Cup winner, but he lacks pace. I mean, I don't think he was the worst player on the pitch against Spurs at the weekend, but he lacks pace. The much maligned Thomas Souček, he tries hard, but he was so much under pressure that he could rarely get forward enough into dangerous areas to cause Spurs any problems. Lucas Paquetá leaves an awful lot to be desired at the moment and was again responsible for giving the ball away far too many times for anyone's liking. I don't know what conflict there is between Lopetegui and Alvarez as to why Alvarez didn't start. I'm guessing that Alvarez didn't start the game against Spurs because of possible fatigue after representing Mexico away during the international break. But Alvarez at least adds a little bit of steel in that midfield. And Lopetegui has to start Alvarez and play either Rodriguez or Souček or even someone else like Irving alongside him, for that matter. Now, despite losing Kudus for 3 games, possibly more, Lopetegui has to seriously consider dropping Paquetá. He's too much of a liability. Yes, of course, we now know that losing someone like Kudus will almost definitely affirm that Paquetá will start the next game. But in my mind, I think we need to seriously consider dropping Paquetá as well, because he's just not adding anything to this squad at this moment, to this team at this moment in time. Jared Bowen's getting an awful lot of stick because of his captaincy. He's not vocal enough. And after the match, he didn't come out in front of the cameras. That was left to Kilman. That was left to Souček to talk about the game post-match. We need to see a little bit more of Bowen and his leadership qualities. We need to see that not only off the pitch, but on the pitch even more. Antonio, as I've said, he's not at the races. I can't just blame him for the defeat, but he had no energy. It was obvious that he was going to have no energy. And the irony is that if Lopetegui didn't pick Alvarez because of fatigue, because of the international break, then what on earth was he doing picking Antonio for the team, who would have been equally fatigued? It was obvious that he was not at his best, right from the start of the game, let alone staying on the pitch for, 60 odd minutes or so. And when it comes to Kudus, the suspension, it means that Lopetegui is going to have to change it in the next game against Man United. There's no way. I was in a sort of way, I kind of got why Lopetegui picked the same team for the 3rd time in a row. But at the same time, I was kind of expecting Lopetegui to use the players available to him during the, because of players being away on an international break. But he didn't do that. And what message does that send out to the likes of Somerville and various other players that weren't on an international break, where they haven't got their chance? So he brought back, players like Paquetá, Alvarez, Antonio, all had long trips abroad, during the international break, but they were still, all right, apart from Alvarez, they were still picked. Now, what does it say about the other players that he's got available to him? Does he not trust them? Does he not think they're good enough? He's got to make changes now, hasn't he, against Man United, because we've lost Kudus. I think he should be making even more changes. Like I said, I think we should be going to a back 3 with a wing back system. I think that suits the players that we've got available to us far, far more. Play 3 in the middle, play 2 wing backs, play 3 at the back, and then play 2 up front. We've got the players available to us that can do that. Maybe then someone like Antonio with another player alongside him might do an awful lot better. I don't know. But something's got to change, because against Man United, it's another test. This is another team that we should, all right, Man United aren't at their best at the moment, but yet again, this should be another team that we should be demonstrating that Lopetegui was the right choice for West Ham in order to elevate us to the next level. If we lose against Man United this coming weekend, I guess serious questions have got to be asked about Lopetegui. Is he the right man for the job? It's going to be interesting to see what happens There's so much going on at West Ham at the moment. It's a bit of a don't want to say it, but it's a bit of a headache. Not only do we have to deal with the whole Paquetá issue off the pitch, now we've got the Kudus issue, losing him for 3 games, potentially even more. Questions being asked about the likes of Areola, questions being asked about the players that we brought in during the summer. Lopetegui'S beginning to demonstrate he might be another Moyes in terms of the not using certain players, sticking with certain players. He's got to be brave enough. It looked as if in the early part of the season he was brave enough to drop players when they weren't on form. He's got to now demonstrate that from the start, not just taking players off during the game, but actually showing to players that if they're not doing it, then they don't get picked in the first 11. And the likes of Paquetá, the likes of Antonio, the likes of Rodriguez, if they're not doing it, then maybe they shouldn't be in the starting lineup against Man U. Spurs did a number on us. They were really good. They're everything, and I hate to say this, but they're everything that we aspire to be. How awful does that sound? Against an opposition that we don't get along with. But it's true. Postecoglou outsmarted, outwitted Lopetegui. Lopetegui, needs to demonstrate that he's got balls of steel, and he's got to drop players that are not doing it at the moment, and he's got to start giving other players an opportunity to demonstrate that they're worthy of being picked in the team. I'd bring back Mavropanos, put 3 at the back. By all means, let Wan-Bissaka and Emerson maraud down the wings, but you'll have that defensive cover with Mavropanos alongside Todibo and Kilman at the back. I'd really seriously consider, I don't know what issue he has, if he has any issues with Alvarez, but he's got to consider starting Alvarez in the next game against Man United. Maybe dropping the likes of Souček and or Rodriguez, and maybe playing Irving in that area as well. At least he'll have something about him. He'll want to prove himself. Let's see what happens. But it was a thumping. And to those people that say I've got rose-tinted glasses on, I'm going to say it again. At halftime, I thought we did really well. I thought we were doing really well, but that tactical switch by Postecoglou led to them, adding to, the attacks that they had, and they tore us apart. Let's see what happens in the next game. Like I said, if you're new to the channel, please do become a subscriber, whether you're new or existing. If you've appreciated the content, then please do hit that like button. And I will see you again for the West Ham Weekly on Monday evening. See you all.